from nitrogen. As Bayern has been a very important player in that. And as an answer, so after 10 years, the farmers realized that their land was dead. And of course, there was production, but there were fungi, there were all diseases, and that required then, because if you use a chemical fertilizer, your plants, you see them all around here, they develop a deep blue within the green, and then you know it's chemically fertilized. If you look at our garden, it's lighter green than the crops you find outside in the region here, and that's because we don't use chemical fertilizer. And so as an answer to that, pesticides were invented, because if you give these plants so much nitrogen at once, they grow really fast, but they're weak because their system, their microbiome hasn't developed. It's a very one-sided way of looking at plants. And the inventor, Justus von Liebig, a German scientist, who figured out what is the minimum that plants need to grow, and it was NPK, nitrogen, potash, and kalium, and he already withdrew that statement 10 years after his own invention, but then the agricultural companies were already set up. This was during the industrialization, so this went very fast, and as an answer to this, Rudolf Steiner, which I am definitely not embracing, because there are certain problematics within the ideology of Steiner, and that has to do with the development of humanity and higher stages of being, and particular races above other races in their development. So I would definitely decline part of the basis of, let's say, the eugenics of the biodynamic movement. And also my parents were very critical of that. So as an answer, a group of farmers and Steiner went looking into nature, like what can nature offer us as an alternative to these chemical pesticides, and to the simplification of plant life, which requires more than just these three elements. So then these kind of amendments came into being, because what they started to do is to analyze substances that are already present in nature. My journey started 3 years ago when my father got dementia diagnosis, a very aggressive one. Looking backwards at age 52, so it's very young. My father is a Zen Buddhist, he doesn't do crazy things, so we were very puzzled, like how is it possible that somebody that lives so healthy, that's always outside, that's engaging with like natural elements, gets sick. And we did a test, it doesn't run in the family, so it needs to come from an exterior, so it's not in the genetic package of our family. 2 years ago, also his co-worker at age 59 started to develop the same symptoms, and I started to do some research. I found on Academia 1,700 papers published on the relationships of pesticides and dementia. Especially France has been in a further awareness of this. Dementia is called in France officially the farmer's disease. Wow. And this is because of the heavily use of pesticides in the wine industry. And one paper in French academic medical a journal stated that in France you have 80% chance, more chance of getting dementia living in the countryside, not even like living as a farmer, just living there, as opposed to the city. So you would think the city is heavily polluted. Well, it's not. It's actually the countryside has an invisible blanket with pesticides. And one thing they didn't know is the working of all of these different pesticides together. And that is only like, actually the European Union now set up a research they are going to invest 20 million into researching how these pesticides interact with each other and how the sediments are actually storing parts of these pesticides. One of the problems with pesticides is that they're invisible. So it's an invisible threat that you can't protect yourself. It's like music. It comes to you. It's not something you can recognize. The second is that these pesticides have been amended with oil derivatives to stick to the leaves, which means they stick to dust. And dust is blowing over the countryside, and we inhale the dust. It sticks, it gets into our system. And what it does, these pesticides, they are actually made to kill the microbiome of the soil, because the microbiome is the enemy of the industrial farmers, because it's uncontrollable. You don't know. Later we're going to look under the microscope. We see bacteria, but we don't know if it's a good one or a bad one. Roughly said, you can divide the bacteria in 3 types of bacteria. You have 10% good bacteria, 10% bad bacteria, and 80% undecisive. They always choose the winner of the good and the bad 10%. And this is exactly how our microbiome also functions in our bodies. So what we have to do worldwide, we have to create a majority of 10% only of the good bacteria. So that's doable. That's not such a big task, I would say. And bacteria reproduce very fast. We're going to do a small workshop in letting the bacteria grow. It needs 1 hour to double all the good bacteria on the entire planet if we are able to create a good microbiome. So if, hypothetically, we can all contribute to something, then we can double the amount of bacteria within 1 hour. So this is crazy. This science is very new. It's only in the 1980s that this started to settle down in academia and in scientific research. Lynn Margulis is the basis of this, her symbiotic theory, and Eileen Graham, I think, translated Lynn Margulis to a practical method for farmers and everyone working with the land is to use. So it's also very interesting that these were 2 women, and I really associate this extractive agriculture with the masculinity, technology, and so yeah, there are ways how we can respond to that. So what is dementia? Dementia means a loss of memory, a loss of working memory. Your muscles are going to be shortened, and my father is a very lively, positive person, and he walks now like this because his entire body is infected with that. And the maximum time you can live with Lewy body dementia is 8 years, and probably because he got it very young, maybe he has 10 or 12. But he will end up in a diaper, totally isolated from the world. And this started this project out of rage, out of suffering, out of anger. And I didn't know how to. At first I thought, okay, we need a forensic architecture to go to the countryside and map all of this out. We need to go into farming communities, to talk with retired farmers and to see how far this has infected. There's 2 big differences between organic farmers and non-organic farmers, is that the non-organic farmers, they spray this pesticide in closed cabins on big machines. They are protected. Organic farmers, like my father, worked with 15 people on a weeding bed, which I spent all my summer holidays doing, by hand removing all the weeds. So basically you're laying on a bed, let's say a half a meter above the soil, and the only thing you do is this. Your mouth is very close to the soil, the dust. I cannot talk about it with my father because this would put him in this victim role, and I think that I cannot do, just not as a as a loving child from him. But of course, my mom and in the family, this is the discussion we have. And so I started to think, okay, he's losing his memory. I need to archive that. 35 years of living with the elements, 35 years of extremely skilled farming on a large scale, 250 acres, 11 crops, and 1 year resting time. So only at year 11, the potatoes are back at the same spot. And that is because all plants take up different nutrients, and it also avoids using pesticides because they cannot survive without its host. And so this rotational system is very challenging for farmers, and you need to be very skilled to do that on a large scale. It's nice, we can do it in the garden, of course, but it's very hard to do this on a large scale. He managed to do that, and I want to record it. My father now lives in Amsterdam. He's a postman part-time, and he has to stop working in December because in the Netherlands you can only work 2 years with dementia, and then the government says, okay, you cannot work anymore because nobody can take that responsibility for people with dementia in their companies. And I think that's also a problem when you talk about inclusivity, when you talk about participation. And of course he went doing the post. He has been doing that for the last 10 years. He quit the farm 10 years ago. It's to be outside, and he taught me to think outdoors. He said I cannot think indoors. It's too low. Something happens. I can only think outdoors, and I think this is a beautiful thing we all should practice. Is what happens if we leave our computers, our offices, and we try to include the outside world into our daily life and see how that affects our thinking and our does it make us more sensitive? Donna Haraway has been written about this very beautifully, and I can bring it back to my father's story. So I wanted to record the memory of my father, and this is coming out of that. I'm recording at the moment a film with him where we practice the whole farming structure on 9 square meters in Amsterdam, the edges between the socialist flats with all the immigrant gardeners around them. He has 9 square meters where he grows all his food now. And in the film we go through all the processes with the farm, but then on a tiny scale. And for me that's also a way to work with that. So my grandmother, because this runs in the family, my grandmother was the first female biodynamic farmer in the world. This is her study book, all her notes from 1948. It was in the earth, and
so beautiful.
In this sense, it's also maybe a slightly biodynamic farming wants to create this connection between the cosmology and the biology, let's say. So, for example, silver is oak bark. So this is the bark from the oak. Iron is nettle. I forgot to harvest that. We have it everywhere, so the element is present. It's the nettle. I made a tea. I will bring it back. It smells horrendous, but it's so powerful for the earth, for the plants. Then we have quick is chamomile. We have tin is we call it the horseflower. I don't know, a dandelion. Copper is this one, and the valerian is lead. That's here. So these plants all relate into a system, to the cosmological system that activates elements within the growth of plants. So that is a simplification. And then Venus is there. Venus has a cycle of 8 years, which it has a pentagram here. And so it's a very deep practice. It's not just like growing plants and making food. Then there's the earth element, the water, the air, and the fire, and these are all needed in a healthy This is a description from 1948 of the amendments, the preparations. So this is how we bring the cosmology later into our compost teas. We're going to stir actually the compost in the tea, and what we actually do is we do the same as rivers do. They always go. Is it a hexagram? No, it's a
Spiral?
yeah, but
The way.
a vortex. It's a vortex, and the vortex, what it does is automatically it creates this, and what it then does, it aerates, so it brings oxygen in the water. Water is anaerobic. There's no bacteria that can ever grow in anaerobic water because we want aerobic bacteria. The anaerobic bacteria are the bad ones. Yeah, so we have to activate our bodies. We have to activate the water in order for these bacteria to grow. They require a relationship with us. Yeah, so then there's the astral, the etheric, and the ego. It's another system that's related to these elements. It goes quite deep, and I have no time to explain maybe all of it, and some of it is even like magic to me. So they invented these amendments. And only 100 years later, science followed and could confirm. So it's also my question, how did they know that 100 years ago, maybe 900 years ago? How did Hildegard von Bingen had this knowledge? And how are we kind of secluding that from our scientific system of knowledge production? And so I'm very much interested in these peasant cosmologies. And I'll leave this here. You can look through it. So this is a very important. I took these from the farm before we left 10 years ago. These are cow horns, and in non-biological agriculture, cow horns are always cut from the cows because they can hurt each other. And this is in biodynamic farming. This would be the biggest crime. Because the cow horns, they point up. They are the sensors of the cow that have a spiritual relationship to the elements and to the cosmos. So one way of making these preparations is to, for example, mix the valerian and this one and the chamomile with the shit of the cow, because that comes out on the back, and the cow has 6 stomachs, and to bring like the earth and the cosmos, the pointing up and the letting go out of it. And also cows, they shit everywhere. Pigs are our most clean animals. They always make a toilet. Horses also do it. They choose one corner where they would never eat, never lay down. They make a toilet, same as us. Cows don't do that. So there's the idea that it has an unconsciousness that is kind of coming from the cosmos. So it's more led by the cosmos. It's less domestic, you could say, than a pig. And this is also why it's such a horror of this kind of industrial agriculture, because pigs are not allowed to make a toilet. They are kept in boxes. And they become just production machines, and they are removed from their being actually. So what they would do is they would mix the fresh manure with all of these herb mixtures and put it in this, and we did it once a year. It was a festival, a big ritual. People would come from all over Netherlands to our farm to do this, because our farm was the main producer of all these amendments, and all the other farmers, because it's quite a lot of work, would take the amendments. So basically you dig it in the soil. There's like some images here. You cover it and you leave it for a year, and then when the moon is at a particular stage and the cosmology is right, we open the pit, and we put it into a big water. It was like a silo, and that silo had a stirring stick, and then we would stir for 1 hour the tea with these amendments, and later we would spray that on the field to. So this is all poetry. It's peasant poetry that my parents would read while they were stirring. So my father just sent this 3 days ago, so I had no time to translate it. So this is a horn preparation. I can just do a loose translation. So may the forces of the plants, the power of the winter sun, the earth, penetrate the earth, working through the preparation substance and through the vortex in the water, will be sucked into the tea. May the planet constellations enhance these powers for an optimal working of this preparation. And the poetry got lost in the translation, so it also has a kind of conundrum or a matrum, I don't know. So it's full of beautiful references. The vortex comes a lot back, so we're going to work with the vortex. What is soil made of? That's a good question. Well, I've been washing the soil here, is to separate the elements of the soil. You can do a very simple soil test. You take a bottle of water, you take a hand of soil, you shake it very well, and then you leave it settle down. And then we see, I would say like a 3/4 of the soil in Schöppingen. I took it here in the cornfield, but it's the same soil as here. 3/4 here is made out of sand. Let's say this part is the fertile part, that's the clay that stores the minerals, that stores the food. And then there's a fine clay, and in between is the silt. And silt, here you see the lighter, this is all sand. And the silt is just like a coarse sand. And what happens is they all come down at a different, because they all have a different texture. And then the organic matter is floating on top. So this is a very easy way to see what is your soil made of. But here I washed it out. This is 100% clay. This is the sand. And this is the organic matter. So this is probably animal manure. There's some leftovers from the last year plants. And this is the clay. You can touch it, of course, but it doesn't really smell nice.
Why?
Yeah, I'll tell you, because it's anaerobic soil. This is aerobic soil, so this is the soil. I went back to the farm where I grew up and to taking soil. And this is what I am made of. All my cells are made of. This runs in my family. My grandparents have been running the farm for 24 years. Then my parents have been running the farm for 30 years. So this lineage goes back very deep in me. This is very healthy soil. I dare to eat it. It tastes actually very nice. Even the smell of it, I can just let it go around. Even the smell of it reminds me of my youth. This is the soil from Schöppingen. I would never dare to put this in my mouth. It smells bad. It looks bad, and it's death. It's death in comparison to this, which is living. So even if the microbiome is dried up, if we wetten this, it will immediately attract these 80% of undecisive bacteria, and it will immediately recolonize the soil with the good ones. If we wet this will attract the bad ones very easily. It's the same with like sourdough or with yogurt. You can even dry sourdough and you have a new sourdough within a day. And normally it takes this cycle of 6 days to bring the undecisive bacteria in there. So this is the difference between organic and inorganic. This is organic, this is inorganic soil. So this is the clay I got out from my father's land, or our family land. And this I fully trust. We even made face masks with it. It's very good for your face. I dare to eat this. I love to eat clay. Anyway, it's a very, here you have this brand Luvos Huilaarde. This is the same.
Huilaarde.
Yeah, Huilaarde. Yeah.
You can buy it in the pharmacy.
Exactly. And this is the organic material that I got out of the Heimat clay, my hometown clay. I want to, so this is part of a process where I want to work with ceramics, is to actually work with farming communities, bring the farmers back to their land, and actually work with the clay in kind of working with stories and storytelling. So I'm already doing that with my father. And of course, clay is very therapeutical. It has this, so it's in development, I would say.
Really?
But yeah, you can smell this one and then smell this one, and then you know what I'm talking about.
That smell.
Like it smells like.
It's kind of milder somehow. This is more sharp.
Yeah.
What would you say, Ara? There is a difference.
Well, this is more alive, I would say.
Yeah, I also wonder what the ceramics, how the colors will different if I go to different
Black.
places and.
Yoeri, this one looks oily.
Yes, exactly. Now that could be from the
Pesticides.
pesticides that have been. Yeah, one potato in industrial agriculture, which we all eat, if we want it or not. One potato has been sprayed 17 times. 17 rounds of sanitization has been done before you eat that potato. It's incredible the amount of and that residue, you can wash it off, of course, but it also says something about nutrition. Now in California, finally, there's a tool. There's a tool to look at the nutrition between one carrot and another.
Really?
And this is maybe going to be revolutionary.
Absolutely.
Because in the supermarket, you have no idea. We always buy basis on what we see, but we have no idea if this is what's in there.
Yeah.
It looks like a great carrot. It looks nice and healthy. And then you have this wobbly organic carrot that's much more expensive. But once we can measure the nutritional value in vegetables, hopefully this gives organic farmers a tool to make also a statement and to also sell vegetables based on nutrition and not how it looks like. And I think this is revolutionary. It's a spectrometer, I think, that you can really look at the nutritional value, so you can see the amount of sugars, vitamins, sporal elements.
Kind of
I don't know. It's in development. This is future. And hopefully also supermarkets then have to list the nutritional value of what they sell, because now we have no idea. And hopefully this will support the organic agriculture movement.
Too, that's like the normal stuff. They call it like the conventional agriculture is the chemical one.
Yes.
And the organic one is the special one.
Yes.
And what happens often in Germany is you go get the organic stuff, and so that they can differentiate, they pack it in plastic, the organic stuff. So then you're in the dilemma, shall I get the plastic stuff or shall I get the free stuff? And
no, exactly. But based on nutrition, you will always go for nutrition.
of course.
Yeah, because that's the reason why we want to eat. And I can taste the difference very easily. My mom tastes even the chemical fertilizer in cucumbers and in radishes and in salad. She can taste it. It's salty. Because the key element to make them soluble in water is salt. So these chemicals are connected to salt particles, and my mom tastes it. So they're more salty, the non-organic vegetables. There's another very interesting, my grandfather stopped plowing the soil in the 1970s, and they said he was a crazy. He was totally like a madman, especially when you live in an agricultural community that's deeply religious, deeply industrialized, and you have this cult here with their amendments and their rituals and their festivals. So we were definitely marginalized, even to the level that somebody emptied a tank full of liquid shit in in the garden of my grandfather. I think even in the house of my grandfather. They would throw clay and shit when we put out the washes on Sunday, because it was on Sunday. It was a resting day, and one should not do anything. So they would literally throw shit at the white bed sheets of my grandmother, and very interesting. He stopped plowing, and now it's common to not dig anymore, because now we know there's a mycelium network. Same as in the city, if you would just open the soil in the city, all the cables are damaged. The internet, the water, the electricity, everything. So this is also how nature works. In this garden, it's a compost garden, so it works a little bit different. We have a lot of mycelium. It's full of mycelium. It's fantastic. But if you have a large-scale farm, you can't put so much compost on there. So you have to find a different way. And he invented this way of not plowing in the 70s, because he said it's a spiritual thing. It's like you open something, you turn the microbiome upside down. The aerobic bacteria are going to be anaerobic, and the anaerobic bacteria is going to be exposed. So they both die. Now we know through Lynn Margulis and Eileen Ingham that it takes 2 months for the structure to recover from that under ideal circumstances. So you can imagine if it's not ideal. But it also means we can save these poor soils here around us and then in the rest of the world by treating it differently. And it will probably take a while more, because it's so in the deep unconscious, same as mowing here the grass, that people just forgot why they do it. So if you see a plowed land, you're sure that there's industrial farming, because biological or biodynamic farming would never do that again. It's the mycelium network. It's the internet of plants, not the internet of things, in which this tree can send signals to that small oak tree. This is an offspring from that tree. So they are already together. And we all know, thinking as a forest, we all know that trees communicate, and that this tree recognizes its offspring and will feed its offspring with more nutrition than when it's an oak from another tree. But if this is going to be attacked, it will send signals to that tree to make substances so it can protect itself. If we would dig trenches here, where we break open, it's not the roots that are connected, but it's the mycelium that is in between the roots that is used to communicate. So if we would plow here, we would break all the communicating networks. And this is also in our garden, we don't do that. So here I can show you how the mycelium look like. This is just some old wood chip. So this is mycelium. So this is the internet of plants. It's everywhere, and we're also going to cook with it. So you see the white spots? You can also see it in forest. It spreads very fast, and it makes filaments that we cannot see with the bare eye, but we can go to the microscope later and look at them, if we have time for that. So all this white, this is the start of the internet of nature. So I always use wood chip in the garden on the path, because this is extending the communicating network between all the other plants. And if you, for example, do something else I don't know, you put stones there, it's not happening. So if you go to the forest, it's even more. Now it's also not the time to look at mycelium. It's in autumn, you can see it fantastic, because the leaves, they create so much food suddenly that this mycelium network just boom, it explodes. So what I want to do a little workshop of making this fantastic tea.
Great.
And these bacteria, they need actually also food. So
What
this
do you
comes
call
from...
the tea? Sorry.
Yeah, you can call it
compost
compost tea, but we can also make a new name for it.
Cosmology tea?
Yeah, we have to go to Ursula Le Guin us writings to come up with a different way of looking at these things, because she's incredible in like translating these things into fiction and storytelling. So what we need molasses. This is a leftover from the sugar industry. It smells amazing.
So molasses of sugar.
Huh?
Molasses of sugar.
Yeah, molasses. This is the molasses from... Oh, I can't remember. It's what? It's a little bit, yeah. I put just water to shake out the last molasses from the pot. But yeah, this is from carob beans.
So carob.
Carob molasses, and it smells fantastic. Oh.
With the air, it spread the scent. Yeah.
This is another food. This is the protein we need. These are oats, just normal oats. I put into the mixer last night. So this is the second. Yeah, so I just powdered the oats just in the mixer in the kitchen. We need to start. We need fungi and we need bacteria. This is coming from the worm composter that we saw here. I have it on my balcony. I just throw in everything, all the leftovers I eat, and I get this fantastic thing for it. And so I never have to carry a bag on my balcony. It's a small balcony, but it's a garden, trust me. Mrs. Wong is there. And this is the tea that you can tap at the end from it. So this is full of fantastic living organisms. And also this is then the soil actually made out of what I have been eating this winter. It smells amazing. It's free. And I never have to throw anything away, and I never have to carry any bags of anything to my balcony. So I would urge everyone to make one, and you can make it very cheap. What you do is you just drill holes in a bucket, put it in there, take another bucket, also drill holes in it, stack it, and you put a stone underneath on the last one, so it doesn't, the tea doesn't kind of makes it inaerobic. You throw your stuff in here. You can even put plants on top. If you like the top bucket, you can take the bottom when it's finished, and you put the bottom up, and then you can grow salads and herbs in the top, and then it even looks very nice. Basically, what happens? You put in the fresh stuff. The worms, they want it to be a little bit further fermented, so the bacteria, the breakdown bacteria, are already like doing the first job, and then the worms, they eat it. And they always climb to the food, so they leave the bottom one. And when, depending on temperature and what you eat, coffee is fantastic, cardboard, banana peels, throw everything in there except for onions, garlic. They're sensitive beings, worms. Wow. And citrus, they also, and peppers I also wouldn't do. So these are the only things I don't throw in there.
What about the bread or cooked food?
No, I don't do cooked food because it's anaerobic. It's soaked with water, but of course you can, if you have a bit of rice left over, or I just crumble it and just put it through it, and that's all fine. And no, of course it's vegan. You cannot do anything with meat or fish.
No.
So,
but why not onion and the garlic?
Yeah, because it's spicy for them, and they are very sensitive, and they want to have more like bananas and apples and.
Sweet. They're picky.
They're picky, picky. Yeah. Last year, it's a little side story. There were a lot of COVID demonstrations, and we had the police on horses coming every day on my street to repress the demonstrators. And one of the horses shat in front of my door. And I left it there for weeks, and suddenly it became minus 14 in February last year. And I was, oh fuck, the worms are still outside. And I don't necessarily want to have them inside, although they don't smell. So what I did is I scooped the shit of the horse and I put it in the composter. 3 months later, I tapped the tea and gave it to my 62 heirloom tomatoes, which I was growing for a project about Vavilov. So we wanted to do a project. I was developing a lecture performance with these stories of the tomatoes, because they all have individual stories from families having grown them after Vavilov. All 62 tomato plants got wild. And I sent my compost to a lab, and we figured out the the horses had been eating sprayed hay with a pesticide, D2.4, which is the same pesticide that has been used in Agent Orange to deforest. So literally the war gets into my microbiome, and all the tomatoes died.
Wow.
And now even where I only gave the tea, like it's so little, it's so powerful. So it survives the microbiome of the horse, then it survives the microbiome of the worms, and maybe it's like 2 years old, this hay, we don't know. And what they do is they spray it on the grass, because there's one flower, Jacob's kruiskruid, that's poisonous for horses. And of course, if you mix it with the hay, the horse doesn't know. The horse, you can just leave them on the field. If you put the horse outside, it knows. It has an intelligence. It would never eat something that's not good for a horse. Same with cows, same with chickens, they know. But of course, if you make hay and you feed it in winter, then they want to get that out. And so it's really, it's like you cannot trust anything anymore. It's like, God damn it.
I want to ask you, what about banana skins?
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. I mean, I eat organic bananas, so I don't know with the other one. But mostly bacteria break down pesticides, but not D2.4 because it's a hormone-based bacteria.
Wow.
So it's a growing hormone that literally grows the plants to death. It fucks up the genetic.
What a thought.
This is what the Americans developed in the Vietnam War. And so it's not that all the leaves were necessary, that was the napalm, but it was to just like destroy the entire ecosystem so they could see where people are located.
But most of the pesticides come from the leftovers of war.
This is how, after the Second World War, there were all these chemical substances, and then there was like, okay, how can we sell this? And then they developed pesticides out of them. I mean, we know what happened in Beirut. It's still the question whether this was fertilizer or it was for a bomb. So it's the same thing. Fertilizer and the bomb are invented at the same moment. And I think there's also this violence. It's also, I feel that somehow. So in order to reconcile with this trauma of maybe my father being like actually killed by industrial agriculture while he was actually fighting against it, and also my mom and my grandmother, I think I came back to the preparations where I thought, okay, this was 160 years ago, the answer to chemical agriculture. It's also for me to, I want to kind of reactivate that again. And of course, I'm a little bit different. I'm also an artist, and so this is kind of a blueprint for a lecture performance that I want to develop in like storytelling and actually making it. And you are great to test this with. So
guinea pigs.
Yes.
I will. Maybe we can do it in duo. So we basically need an hour. I will do one just to show how it works. I have a very nice cutter. Basically, what you do is you need this, a bucket, and water. This is a little bit of what is it called again, from the pigs?
Manure?
Manure from the pigs that we got from an organic farmer that has 300 black pigs. They are free to go wherever they want. They have a beautiful life. And he makes sausages, of course, out of them. It would be great. He really wants to do a small farmer market here on the parking lot for local biological farmers. And so I really, we have to talk again, but I think that would be fantastic. It was too fresh. So with the residents, he put it here and it stinks.
Yeah, we were smelling that. We've been smelling it.
And with the residents in March, we have been putting all the shit back there, and it also allowed us to talk about smell and about class, because I did it with a writer who's half Bosnian, half German, and he grew up in a restaurant, and he had the same shame as me, but for him, because it was a frying restaurant, his clothes were always smelly like fries, and he wrote now a novel about this smell and class, and we connected very much because I had the same trauma. So you know all about it. So we, during this carrying the shit, we could exchange, this came up, and I don't think it would have come up if we were just in our studios and having a beer together. So it was really nice to share that with Ilya, and now it's good. We put pumpkins on top, and it smells amazing. Come on, like I cannot believe this.
Your nose
It
in
was
there.
the worst smell in the world, like literally. And this is just 3 months later.
Can you use any type of manure, organic manure?
Yes, because organic farmers, they let their animals stand on hay, straw, or wood chip, and that's actually what you need to start the process of composting. Non-organic farmers, they do it in concrete and onto meshes, and then all the liquid shit comes into a basement, and that's what they spray on the fields, and that's what you smell on the countryside. Organic farmers, they cannot do that. They would leave it for 1 year, let it compost. They put pumpkins on it. My family, we had like from here to the barn there a row of this compost next to the fields, and it was full of pumpkins, full of flowers. We just left it there for a year, and the next year it would be spread on the ground. And then this is only like 3 months old, so you can imagine after a year you don't recognize it anymore. It's exactly the same as this, and it's a fantastic resource. But
So it's literally the pig's manure.
yeah, mixed with straw.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's
And
very
then-
important.
And then you grow pumpkins in it?
On top. Yeah, you just
put the seeds
yeah,
on top.
yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
it grows.
And because pumpkins can deal with a lot of nitrogen. If you do it to other plants, they become yellow and they die. But pumpkins are fantastic for that, and they also cover it, which is good. It creates shade because fungi and bacteria, they cannot be exposed to direct sun. So it's in all ways like nature is so clever. We just need to listen to it better. So how to make compost tea? You go in with a little bit of manure. A little bit of my home compost, because this is full of bacteria. I'll lay 1 is enough. Then we have the fungi, and I would take not the big ones, but dig a little bit deeper and take a little bit the fine ones, so they're easily dispersed. A bit more. Then we go in with the molasses. One and a half spoon. And then the compost tea, or the worm compost. Yeah, the worm compost. Also 1 spoon is enough. Then we have it smells, this one. Then we have the protein for the bacteria, also 1.5 or 2. And then what we're gonna do is to create the vortex. So we need to do it for an hour.
Stir for an hour.
Yeah. So I think it's nice if we do it in groups, and then we can. This is a little bit too full. What it does, it's aerating. You can also just leave it go for a while because this is still like moving. Yeah, it's still aerating.
Anti-clockwise or?
Well, my grandmother's book says, I'll take the notes because it's very nice what they wrote. So it's this is even better. Like this is also includes like the planets, but also the salamanders and the sylphan and. So they all have a function. So this is a matron of stirring. Sun, right? AGFEDCB, A, and then left, and then you have the moon. You start with right. So we don't have to do that, but basically what we did on the... So what you do is you start from the outside and then you go to the inside. So you go left and then we go right again. Yeah. And you already see after an hour it will get pitch black and then we know it's ready. That's the sign where it's ready. Like now it's still like gray. And when there was one because we did it before in Cologne. There was one duo that really stirred for an hour, and it was very dark composty. So when we are finished, we can go around to the plants, to the trees, because you cannot spray this. I'll get you out of the way because you are. And we're gonna. So this one is disease. This has powdered mildew. It's all safe, it's all safe. This is also what we have inside our bodies. Like,
It's so safe. It's just a levy
as a ritual, please do the garden. The garden will love this stuff. So we can go around and we can bless. It's almost like religious, but it's also functional. And the other thing what we can do is I set up a microscope. I can help you to look at the microbiome because it's very nice to see if we can find a nematode or they're hard to recognize. It's not spectacular because bacteria don't move. That's a myth. They're just sitting there. So it's kind of hard to tell whether it's a bacteria or it's a little bit of organic matter, but I will help you to determine at least some of them.
In Cologne, they kind of stuck together, they formed a line.
Yes, and you also see fungal filaments. They are branching out, and bacteria are. And if you see a nematode, that's even more beautiful because nematodes they eat the bacteria, and then you see like a round thing full of bacteria in the stomach of the nematode.
Did you see it in Cologne?
No, in Cologne we saw like a line and like stuck together.
You cannot use tap water for it because tap water contains a tiny drop of chlorine, and in order to get rid of it, if you would use tap water, you first have to leave the water for 24 hours out and then it will evaporate, or you stir it out and then it chlorine always, it's a gas, so it evaporates, and bacteria and chlorine, it's a no-go. So we use water, the holy water that comes from the church, and it comes underneath the farm here, or the residency, the Künstlerdorf, and it goes towards our little wild patch on that side.
On the margin.
Yeah, so we take water from there, and there's one more important thing. We only take water from the top because there are fishes, and we scooped it a little bit too deep, and then you also take the fishes, and that we don't want. So you just put the one bucket from the top, and you do it in the next bucket, and not like to scoop it all, because then you and then you also have nice clear water. Maybe you have to get the crates out of the way. So yeah, I would do it in groups. I mean, yeah, it's and I will recite some of the peasant poetry from my ancestors. Yeah, this is another workshop. But what we can, this is the amendment that goes with the manure. So we can also, if you do manure, then we can also put the dandelions in it. So we can also work with these flower components. With the chamomile, for example, there's a lot of chamomile underneath. So we can just use this. Yeah, it's called 1000 blad, 1000 leaves. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, the smell. Oh,
yeah, so yeah, if you are interested to make your own tea.
water we take when we were
Yes.
eating, there is like a little river going under.
And here's a scissor to get some of the sticks to stir. But you can also just find them. But the fresh ones are better because they don't break if you put some force.
Maybe we could do the focus.
It's gonna work.
Sorry.
Yeah, we can reconnect in the focus groups and do it.
Okay.
Very good idea.
Good idea.
Yes.
At the very beginning, but before we to Maddie.
Okay then.
So we have to take one bucket.
We're going to go into our focus groups to each make the compost heap. So everybody will make a.
Oh, look at this. Who else will have the bucket?
Yes, those are better too.
There's maybe one more thing that I wanted to say, which is very interesting. How do plants feed on how are these substances made available for the plant is through the connection of negative and positive ions. If there is thunder in the sky, this also you have water and thunder, and this creates negative and positive ions which they can bind, and they can make nitrogen bioavailable for plants. So after a thunderstorm, the world looks greener, and that is because nature gets a shot of nitrogen. It gets absorbed in the leaves, and they immediately expose the green, and that's why after a thunderstorm, nature looks greener. And this is also works in the soil. So in order to make food bioavailable for plant roots, you have to create, you have to synthesize the negative and the positive ions so they can make the nutrients available. My family works with copper tools, and that is one way of like bringing them together. This is another way that we work with microbes, because they also have a function in this ionic making bioavailable substances, and to me it's fascinating how it all works, but I'm also figuring it out. Like, this is a new thing for me as well. So
But I actually was going to ask you about the buckets too, because some are in plastic and some are
yeah, it's just practical. I love these, but I didn't want to spend a lot of money. They were like €4, and then
But
if you have to buy 10.
The quality of the bucket also may be important, like a copper bucket.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah,
That
of
would
course.
be really
Yeah, yeah.
Where do we get copper?
In the well. Yeah. I'll also bring some water. Yeah.